Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗲𝗁𝗁, and I am your guest host this week while Eric is away. He is currently traveling back from Raleigh and will be here on Monday. Today, our guest is Robert Masla. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
We're so happy to have you here. So tell us, what is it that you're going to teach us today?
Well, I'm going to show you the importance of sketching and keeping an artist's sketchbook, and then how to translate some of that into painting. I'm going to I'll show you a few techniques of my secret favorite travel sketch tools, as well as how to use them. And then I will do a very quick demo of translating a drawing, a sketch, into a 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁 underpainting.
Sorry, that sounds so exciting. Okay, let's get the show started.
It's Artschool Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
Hello, everyone. You may have noticed I am not actually Eric Rhoads. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁, and I am guest hosting for Eric while he's away traveling out and about in the art world. Today, our guest is Robert Masla, Bob Masla, and he's going to show us some techniques and tools to sketch on the go. Bob, take it away.
Thank you, Mandy. All right, so you saw this painting here. So this is a finished painting, actually was done in the studio from both the watercolor and sketches on location, photographs, and of course, improvisation and imagination. We don't want to be tied to what we're looking at because we're creating a painting. I just wanted to show a little bit of the detail of the texture on that, et cetera, et cetera. So, what I'll be doing is showing you some information of keeping an artist's sketchbook, one of my favorite secret tools, so to speak. For sketching.
I love a secret tool. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, and then how to translate those sketches into paintings like that one, or these were actually done, and I left them in this 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗿𝗁𝗁 state. This is simply a transparent red oxide, done on location in a mountain town not far from where I am right now, called 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗏. I'm in my studio in Mexico, in Boca de Tematlán. So that was a very high-key painting, meaning it's very light, whereas this one is also in the same location. I don't know how straight that is, but also this one is a dark-key painting. But what does that mean? Very quickly, we're talking about values. Let's see if I can get this. Here we go. I think I might have gone over this a little bit in my last Artschool Live, talking about value scales. What you have up here in this range, very high key, middle key, low key. You think of like a Rembrandt, or over here maybe Monet. And it creates mood. Last time I was here, I revealed a technique I developed called contour gesture. And that's a practice, like all painting is, and drawing is a practice. And this is an example of that. I was saying how, this should take you maybe 30 seconds to a minute, as I demonstrated in that exercise. And this is one of my travel books. This is something I keep in my pocket whenever I'm going, or in a little bag. It's small. I was having work done on my car the other day, so I was just quickly sketching there. It's, so important to keep the muscles moving. I got up early the other day, so this is a very different kind of drawing. It's more of a rendering. Okay. There was a beautiful flower that I put in a glass of water the day before I picked off the garden, and I was amazed to see it was still blooming. So that's one kind of sketchbook to keep. Another form of gesture drawing, I just thought I printed this out because this sketchbook I don't have with me. It's back in my studios north. This is a pen and ink. I just printed it from an image in my computer. It was done probably 40 years ago in Boston at 𝗧ciecie𝗹𝘀𝘀. done at a distance, but it's a gesture to capture movement. He's conducting the orchestra. It's a whole different style and method of drawing. So there's no rules. If you've ever done one of my workshops or attended my lectures, I always say there are no rules. There are only formulas and methods, techniques that can give you somewhat predictable results.
So I understand that you teach workshops in your magical studio there in Mexico. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, certainly, and hopefully I'll show you a little bit later. We're celebrating our 19th year here. I and other famous artist colleagues teach here during the winter months. It's an all-inclusive week at artworkshopvacations.com. And I'm teaching, actually, this course is based on some of the things I did last time I was on this Art School Live. It's called, the course I've taught for a number of years, called Drawing for the Painter, Painting with Passion. So it's a mixture of drawing exercises and painting exercises. Because I was talking to Mandy backstage before, art is not something you can teach. Art is a practice and a way of being. It's a moment-to-moment thing, a way of living life. What we can teach is techniques and methods. But art, we can only create an environment that fosters creativity, spontaneity, improvisation, and intention. And that's what we do here. And then we also add lots of technique and methods to that. So you, yeah.
Yes. And today we're going to be learning a lot of your techniques for sketchbook drawing and how you translate that.
Yeah. And so, as I was saying, last time I did that demo and everybody said, oh, what a game changer that is. Eric invited me to teach at the Plein Air Convention right on the spot, saying, oh, let's put you in the pre-convention workshop on essentials. So this is a few ideas of variety of thumbnails. Okay, taken from images that are of that area in the Smoky Mountains, and different approaches that one can take using pencil, pen. Here's a few others. You do thumbnails to explore composition, explore values, changes, etc. So this is a large format sketchbook that is more like a journal. In it, figures, etc. When I'm on location, practicing that. They're very quick drawings. I also make notes for my lectures and just for myself, poetry. That's a different kind of sketchbook.
Sure.
And then,
Teresa is saying in the chat that she finds thumbnails intimidating. What would you say to a student that finds thumbnails intimidating?
I would say let's break them down and make them simple. Because they shouldn't intimidate you. And drawing often does intimidate people, and people want to jump into painting right away because color's sexy.
Yes.
And I remember just recently in Plein Air magazine, 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗁, in her lovely article about her process in marketing, she said to her students, I think it was something like, if you think you can paint without learning how to draw, good luck to that. So,
that's a great
quote. I wouldn't quite say good luck. There are processes of painting without drawing, but it's going to affect what you can accomplish. My whole philosophy is the more colors on your palette, metaphorically, the more you're able to follow the muse of your inspiration. Otherwise, you're limited by your set of skills, because improvisation is coming totally prepared and even having an idea of what you're going to do, and then being willing to abandon all of it to what the paint and the situation is telling you, and listening to the paint.
Yeah, I often tell my students that my job is to give them like a hammer and nails, and maybe they don't need to use the hammer, but they'll never not have one if they need it. And when they need it,
exactly,
they have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, a couple of sketchbook. Now this is a quick watercolor tonal study. Okay, this was in Croatia. I take a group to Europe every year. Next year we're going to France and following in the footsteps of the Impressionists and the Barbizon School. There's 2 cabins left if anybody's interested. Check my website. this was also from Croatia. All right, so these are a little larger than thumbnails, but these are a different kind of study. And this is using the tool that I'm going to introduce you to in just a moment. Another one from Montenegro. Again, figures. And one last one I'll show you here. Whoop. So again, changing orientation. This became a painting. And then little watercolors done here. But notice that you're controlling value with drawing and composition. Sometimes I'll change things around quite a bit. This is all the Croatia sketchbook. So
I think you're one of the most fearless artists I've ever met. We've seen watercolor, charcoal, pencil, like everything in these sketchbooks. You are not afraid of taking whatever medium suits you at that moment and going for it.
Exactly. Students will often ask, Bob, what's your favorite medium? And I always say paint, because intention is everything, whatever your intention might be. And that's why I said, yeah, you don't necessarily need to learn how to draw, but if you're trying to paint something representational, you definitely need to know how to draw. And that's the difference between, say, a critique and criticism. Criticism is an attack, and there's no room for that as far as I'm concerned in art. It's ego. Critique is understanding your intention and a totally objective evaluation of where you are in the moment to that intention and what you need to get there.
That's a wonderful distinction.
You know, that's the only way you can actually evaluate or critique a work. So if people ask me, Bob, give me a little critique if you would, my first question is always, well, what's your intention? Because if you're trying to do an abstract expressionist painting, that's a whole lot different set of criteria than if you say, I want to do a photorealistic representation of that. You know, different technique, whole different critique. So let's jump into this.
Woohoo! I love jumping into art.
Yeah. So this is a couple of sketches also from the Croatia trip. The first one, okay, I'm looking more for information, not necessarily how I'm going to paint it, just trying to render what I'm seeing quickly. And then this is more of the value study. I'm dropping this back, lighter value, emphasizing what is important to me. I also noticed some things in my quick sketch, for example, you know, this lining up here, what do you call that? My mind's blanking. When the two planes lock because of a line, it'll come back to me. But I moved that over, okay, so that it wouldn't be locking in like that. Anyway, my mind blanks sometimes like that. So a couple of exercises to do. For example, the last time we dealt with we talked a little bit about composition and such. We were dealing with an ebony pencil and doing, you know, this contour gesture thing, you know, for a wine bottle, just continually showing that and then showing height, right? And trying to draw all the various contours at the same time, right? And this is obviously a very rough example, but the idea of doing that and getting that happening. The other thing, you know, as you're a painter, that's linear, but with painting, we're actually dealing more with value and, you know, unless you're painting like Van Gogh and you're doing contour lines all over your painting, we're dealing with, you know, the shapes or the negative shapes, for example. And this is a great exercise. I'm not going to go into it, but I set up a still life. One of the things I have people do is draw only the negative space around the object, right? So this gets you to start seeing. And then also, sometimes I'll tell you, just draw the shadow shapes. So if you can see over there on the still life, if you're just drawing the shadow shapes, the shadows are so important in your painting because they actually describe the contour, the flatness of this plane or the height of the one of the drawing in the back. All right, so one more. Let's use my secret drawing tool. and sketchbooks. So I bring those sketchbooks with me. And what I like to use, and sometimes I will travel, you know, if I'm walking a great distance in the city, or if I'm backpacking, I don't carry big backpacks anymore. I just carry my little box of sketching materials, usually, or even lighter, just what is called a graphite wash pencil, and a water brush, and a sketchbook. So a water brush is filled with water. So even if you don't have a water source, so often you don't, squeeze it, and you see the water dripping out. Okay.
Wonderful.
So here is, you know, let's just say a light value to a dark value, right? And I'm going to take a duller one so I don't break the tip and make it really dark over here.
What kind of paper are you working on today?
That is a Fabriano, an inexpensive Fabriano watercolor paper. They sell it in pads. I think it's a 90-pound. You know, I like a variety of watercolor papers, but Fabriano is certainly nice. So then this already has water in it, and see what happens. It becomes basically an ink wash.
How fun is that?
And then you can take that while it's still wet and make a well out of it.
So we're having a hard time seeing what you're doing right now.
Oh, my hand's in the way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also working too small. All right, let me make that larger.
Oh, I see what you're doing. So yeah, yeah. So you're pooling some water.
Yeah, I'm taking some of that ink. That's, or graphite, I should say, and just, all right. And then I can come back if I wanted to and work into that.
Great. So for those of you just joining us, we're here with Bob Masla today, and we're looking at some really interesting sketchbook techniques and materials.
And so, you know, then you just take it and play with it. And so now I've got, you know, a couple of figures hanging out. You know, if you looked at that painting of the beach that was first on the screen, you know, if you look closely, those figures are just basically blobs of paint. They're in gestural movements rather.
Could you hold up your pencil really close for us so we can see it a little better? Great. And just so you know, we have about 30 minutes left to work today.
Okay. So I'm going to move. I just want to show you one more thing with this. Again, you know, as we were talking about, as most of us are doing landscapes in plein air. So here we go. Oh, I broke that one. Sharpness. So you have different values happening with this, and that's, you know, by adjusting the pressure, you can adjust the values and move things forward and back, etc. Can you see that all right?
Yes, thank you. So that particular mark making tool really gives you a wide variety of values.
Yeah, and the beauty also is once it's wet and dries, it's permanent.
Oh, nice.
It's like an ink painting. It's like a 𝗬𝗎 brush painting to me. There's so much you can do with it. But we're going to move on. So I'm going to take this drawing that I was showing you earlier. Right? And I'm going to work with that and do a quick sort of an imprimatur technique. So I've done imprimatur demos, I think, on this show before. With watercolor on canvas, with oil perhaps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use water mixable oils and limited palette because it's, you know, it's an underpainting. And so I'm using, the other thing is, you know, the degree of realism, quote unquote, depends on, again, your intention. So that first painting, is very different than a study like this, which was an acrylic that I did from the balcony here looking down at the river below, which was a much more studied piece. So really your attention determines materials and so much. Okay, so let's get this going here. So on my palette, okay, I have what is a cold gray, a Payne's gray, a white, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and transparent red oxide. So those of you who are unaware of using grays or mud, as it's often called, it's your friend. I think 𝗦𝗲𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁 who said, give me the choice of any color and mud, and I'll paint you a Venus.
Oh.
Or something of that nature. Anyway, you know, there are all these artists said things. Who knows if they said them, but they sure teach us a lot.
I was reading 𝗦𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁's journal not too long ago, and I came across this passage where he was very upset about the quality of what's it called when you stuff animals to
taxidermy.
Taxidermy, yes. So I guess they had just taxidermied a giraffe, and he was so upset about the gesture of this giraffe that they had taxidermied.
Crazy. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the differences in these grays. This one is cold gray, and this is a Payne's gray. Now, this is Cobra paints. Every paint manufacturer makes these a little different if they do it. But you notice that this actually cold gray feels warm against the Payne's gray. This has a kind of bluish, almost violet tint to it, where there's almost a yellowish undertint. But it's cool, certainly when compared to a warm gray.
Ah.
Okay, so color, in as well as value, is totally relevant to what's around it. Just an important side note. Okay, so let's start. I'm gonna use water. I'm working with Cobra water mixable oil. And so I'm gonna thin this a lot for speed, but also you should know that just like if you, imprimatur means literally the first color. So if you were doing this, say, with oil or even other medium, you want to make sure, particularly with the Cobras, I'm gonna thin it a lot. So it's not going to be a permanent. It'll dry, but it will not have, as you thin any medium, whether it's oil with thinner, acrylic with water, you have to add back to it some of the painting medium. Like with acrylic, you have to add painting medium back. With this, there's a painting medium that you could add back. Or you have to, it's the whole fat over lean principle. The thinner the paint, you could eventually rub those acrylic paintings off if there's less than, 50%, more than 50% water. Same here, but this is an underpainting. So I'm looking at this and I'm realizing I'm going to use this fairly light, and I'm going to start over.
For those of you just joining us, today we're here with Bob Masla, and you can learn more about him at maslafineart.com, and you can follow him on Instagram at Robert Masla Studio.
So I'm not being too hung up about details, of course. I'm much more interested in what's happening in the value. But the beauty of this, just like, say, an watercolor that you may do a value study, is you're locking in the shapes together, particularly the shadow shapes. Now this, and basically I'm filling this whole area in. Excuse me, I'm working at a little bit of an angle. And I'm going to estimate where this is coming down.
Your studio has such a joyous vibe.
Yeah, I'm grateful that they're not blasting ranchero music too loud right now. You never know when one of the guys in the boat says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have a party." All right, so this value is, pretty well established. Now, there's many ways that you can take out the paint. Wipe it out is a simple method, right? And I'm going to even lighten that a little bit and bring it back just a hair. It was a little too dark because I want it to be distinctly different. Also, the other method might be, just if you wanted a crisp edge, say, you could actually use the brush and, draw an edge into it.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat for you. So
Sure.
One, somebody's asking, what's the longevity of water-soluble oil paints?
Same as a regular oil paint. It's no different. Yeah, go ahead.
And then the other question is, why are you working on a white canvas versus a tone canvas?
Well, actually, the imprimatur is the toning of the canvas, in a sense. When you stain the canvas, typically an imprimatur is one color, but I'm going to, I was talking about that whole color thing before with the grays. I wanted to introduce that concept as well, which I'll do in a second. So I'm actually using a few colors in the imprimatur. There are no hard and fast rules in painting and creativity, of course.
Sure.
And if there are rules, if somebody tells you, for example, sometimes I've heard watercolor painters say to me, "Bob, my instructor told me not to use white." And I'd say, well, that's kind of strange. Every great artist in history, watercolorists, use white. That was probably invented by the Transparent Watercolor Society. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to introduce a warmer. The transparent red oxide is a warmer, same pigment, PR101, but I'm going to introduce it. Notice how that moves forward. And I'm just going through, and I'm just kind of blocking in the shapes. How am I doing for time, man?
So you have about 20 minutes.
Oh. When I did this demo at the Plein Air Convention on the demo stage, I did a talk on the importance of intention and improvisation and other tools in the creative process. And, I talked and showed slides it's an hour and a half demo, and I only had 45 minutes to do the painting.
Oh, no.
But, everybody came up afterwards. I didn't think you were going to pull it off. Well, I didn't either. But it happened.
So some of us in the audience, myself included, aren't overly familiar with water-soluble oils. Is that medium you're using to thin it just water?
At the moment, yes, just water.
Okay.
Like I was saying, if you're doing it this thin, like this, this is thick enough here. But if you're thinning it that much with water, you need to either put a varnish on it or some thicker medium into it in order to increase the binding. So, the water, just like in acrylic paints, there's a lot of acrylic painters that will sometimes thin their paints a lot, make them like watercolors. If you don't varnish that, you're really stretching the limits of its longevity because you're decreasing the binder. So you have to add a binder back in. And so that's what you do with all these mediums. The same is true if you thin too much, say, with Gamsol or something like that, with oil paint. All right, so there is almost a completed imprimatura. I've almost covered the canvas. Now, if I was, I could have covered the whole thing with the one color and then just pulled out the lights and then added the darks back in, but I want to illustrate a couple of points. So now I'm going to take the cold gray with a good bit of white, and we're going to put that in there. And what's going to happen is it's going to actually start to look like blue, like a bluish gray sky. And if you know the works of Rembrandt, oftentimes in his landscape, he would use gray in the skies because blue, ultramarine blue, was very expensive color because it got its name ultramarinus because it was brought to us from across, or brought to Europe from across the sea, ultramarinus, and it was crushed lapis lazuli, and so it was fairly costly. And Rembrandt was not, for a good portion of his career, not a very wealthy man. There was a time where he was, and then he really was painting his own way, and his patrons didn't quite appreciate it.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, what a great painter. Anyway, you can see how that's starting to pick up a shimmer of a bluish tone. Of course, white is very cool also.
There's a question about your easel setup. Is it pretty versatile about how large or small you can of canvases you can use on that type of easel?
Yeah,
setup?
this is actually not my typical oil painting easel. This is my Plein Air Pro watercolor easel, but sometimes I'll, for smaller canvases or canvas boards, I'll attach it like this, and it's a great versatile easel. Yeah. And so as it comes up, so another thing I think is a nice thing in landscape painting particularly is the idea of a gradient. All right. So I'm going to introduce just a little bit of the Payne's gray up here. Whoop. Maybe I need to.
What kind of board are you painting on there?
This is a Frederick's canvas on board, a cotton duct. So again, if you're using water mixable oils, you have to use a cotton acrylic prime canvas. Now that doesn't mean you have to go throw out all your oil paints. You can do what's called lay a couch, or couche, I don't know what the proper pronunciation of that is. I always say couch, but it literally means a coating of oil so that the, like a linseed or so, the painting medium, so that there's tooth. So I would rough up the linen prime canvas, oil prime canvas, a little bit with some sandpaper, and then lay a couch before adding the imprimatur. And a couch is usually used in between coats of, it's the same thing as oiling out a painting. Like if you notice in an oil painting, some of the areas are sunken in and flat and matte, and others are shiny. And you oil them out by introducing some more linseed oil or a painting medium. So it all brings it to shine, and then you're also feel like you're working wet and wet. So if you notice there's a little gradation happening, I'm going to make it a little stronger just to illustrate the point. So what happens, maybe even a touch of blue into that.
We have about 15 minutes left to work today.
Oh, great. Perfect. So if you notice, what starts happening is you create, by enriching the sky here, it's moving forward. And, I could add elements of texture up there too to do that. And Monet talked about creating an envelope. So, the earth is coming at you underneath, and the sky actually goes overhead. It's not way back there. It's up here above us. So you want to create that gradient effect that can have that happen. The other thing is, as you're painting, you're using a color to carve out, like I'm doing here, carving away some of it. So that was the reason I wanted to introduce that. You can see it's starting to take on a kind of bluish hue to it. that's because it's against all this warm color.
Mm.
All right. All right, so let's get back to, rinse these off. Cleaning this up a little bit. And of course, the improvisational aspect is, making changes as you go. I think I'm just looking right now. I want to take some of this white and cut that off a little bit more. Nice shape. All right. All right, so let me, I always tell students use the biggest brush possible for the passage, or choose one bigger to keep you from getting too tight, but also know when it's time to switch. So I want to put a few of these elements in here. We have these windows.
Could you tell us a little bit about the brush that you're using? What shape is it? What kind of fibers?
This is a long flat. And all these brushes, I love these. I've been using these for plein air for years now. These are Princeton Aspens. Mm-hmm. And what I love about them is the black ferrule. Now, if you've painted in plein air, particularly in a sunny place like Mexico, and you're out in the sun, sometimes you get blinded by the reflection in the ferrule.
Brush blindness.
Huh?
Brush blindness from the shiny ferrule.
Yeah. So this was a great thing.
Oh, I love that. I do know a few painters that take black nail polish and paint the ferrules of their brushes.
Yeah, I used to put black tape around my brushes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one of the things I like about them. I use flats. I use filberts and rounds. Anything to get the job done. A stick would work in certain instances. All right, so let's start shaping things up a little bit more.
So we're having a hard time seeing right now.
Oh, because I'm left-handed?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, let's see. I just want to pull out a little bit more light here. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of an angle on this. I think I need a little bigger brush. That was too small.
So you seem like the kind of painter that goes through a lot of brushes. How many brushes do you think you use in a typical painting?
It's interesting. In a watercolor, I might use one brush the whole time. In oil painting, I'll often switch a lot. Mm-hmm. So, 3 or 4 brushes, probably.
You're getting some love from your fellow left-handed painters in the chat.
Thank you.
Lefties are the best.
I'm not going to get too hung up in what's happening back here because that's not as important. And I want to actually drop this back a little bit more. So you can control some of the value with the water here, as you can see. And let's move this building over a little bit.
So we have about 10 minutes to work, just so you're aware.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
For those of us just joining us today, our guest is Bob Masla, and you can learn more about him at maslafineart.com and follow him on Instagram at Robert Masla Studio. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗏𝗁. You may have noticed that I am not, in fact, Eric Rhoads. I'm subbing for him this week, but he will be back on Monday. You can learn more about me at the School of Atelier Arts, and you can follow me on Instagram at 𝗦𝗲𝗏𝗁Artist.
So now I'm going to start to pull out, this area here is pretty much as much as I want in terms of information. I could, maybe put in a couple of accents here and there. But not too much. Because, that's background noise, really. This is the area that I want to focus on. So now what I want to do is start cutting away on this. Let's see. So again, I want to create a gradient. Even in a small area of a still life, a gradient will have an effect to move your eye, you know, even from the front lip of a bottle to the back. So here in this boat, we're going to go from light. First of all, I'm going to fill that in so it's not distracting.
So what would you say one of the advantages are of water-soluble oils that you don't get in, say, oil painting or acrylic?
Cleanup. One. The
That's
other
a good
thing
answer.
is,
Yeah.
the other thing is every medium, that's why I paint in all of them, has its advantages and disadvantages. For example, acrylic paint, the advantage is it dries really quickly. The disadvantage is it dries very quickly. You know, there's, one of the things I love about the water soluble is, and this is true even when I'm working in traditional oils, I always cross over techniques. You know, that's the thing about, learning different mediums. They inform each other. You know, the thing I love about watercolor is it is the ideal medium for improvisation because water is fluid. And, you can control it. I don't see the point in controlling it too much. I always tell, even in oil paint, I always say to students, listen to the paint. What is the paint telling you? You know, that's the main thing happening. So now, I'm starting to get some of the form a little bit defined. Let's get a little bit. Let's pull out some more of this. Now, of course, your eye always goes to the place of highest contrast first. And so, this area here, to bring it to the boat, it's also in a good location. How much time, Mandy?
So you have 7 minutes, my friends.
7 minutes. And this transition here. So I'm going to introduce some blue. When you mix blue with either burnt sienna or the transparent red oxide, it makes a nice silvery gray and could make a really nice dark. So let's do that. So again, high contrast. Transition, gradients. And, being aware of changing different things. There's actually a little boat back here tied up in the dock. Let's create that effect.
It's quite marvelous how just putting that higher level of contrast brought forward that
Yeah.
part of the picture.
You know, we could even, well, I'll do that at the last second. Add a figure or something into it. Let's get this boat in.
Now, when I'm teaching online, one of the things that my students I know for sure would do if they were painting this is they would have put in the lines of the boat right away. So how do you develop the patience, or what's your philosophy?
Well, yeah, so the line work, you know, that's the kind of drawing and rendering I was talking about. And I used to, you know, always get so into that. Oh, here comes one of our panderos. And, you know, the thing about painting, you know, when you're putting in the line work, you're thinking of that you're actually painting things, objects. We're not painting objects. We're painting shapes, and we're painting light and shadow. If you're painting objects, you're going to have a struggle with that, interpreting it in paint. But, you know, that's why it's so important. Let's get rid of some of the value back here so it moves forward.
So what do you think are the most common mistakes your students make when you're teaching your workshops there in Mexico?
Well, first of all, there are no mistakes. In my book, there's no such thing as a mistake. There's only opportunities for change and growth.
Oh, I love that.
Mistakes, as we call them, are what used to be called pedimentes. The pedimenta is, I guess, Latin or Italian or something for a repentance, right? And you see it in old masters' drawings and paintings. Sometimes they left a sketch of an arm here, then they moved it to here and painted it in. And it really shows you the process of the artist's thinking. It's really quite cool. So these little repentances, these are our greatest teachers because they are showing us where we are in relationship to our intention. So there are no mistakes, you know, in life as in, you know, art.
Learning opportunities.
Yeah, time for growth.
There's a question about the rag you're using to lift the pigment. Is it a wet rag or a dry rag?
Well, now it's pretty wet. It started off dry.
Yeah. So the answer is both.
Yeah, it started off dry and it soaked up a lot. Let's pull off just a little.
So we have about 2 minutes left, my friends.
All right. What's the consensus? Does this look like it's giving you enough information? All
right, let's ask the chat. What do you guys think? There's a little delay.
All right. What I'd like to do is actually show you my studio real quick.
Oh, we would love to see your studio. So
All
just
right.
a reminder to everybody at home, he has a wonderful studio in Mexico. And I understand you have both a river and an ocean.
Yes. Let me show you. I'll put this down. I mean, there it is. I showed you about contrast of both value and color, that you control color, temperature, and so many different things with that. You know, how to sketch quickly. I mean, what was that, 25 minutes?
It wasn't much time at all.
Yeah. And we've got the bones of it, so to speak, if you use the term in 𝗬𝗎 painting, the basic underpainting. Now you can lay thicker color on top of that and to keeping the values similar. Sharp edges up close, soft diffused edge as you go back. You can even bring some of that out like that. All right, let's take a look.
All right. Lots of love for you in the chat about your painting. It came in on a delay and now it's flooding the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you. So let me show you around Casa de los Artistas. This is one of the main stations that our teachers, myself and others, will work from. It has a mirror so that if you're working in watercolor, you can see the table, right?
Oh, great.
So this is the view. Let me go up here so you can see the mountains. And
Oh, how beautiful.
all right. I can't really see what you're looking at, but I hope it's what I'm seeing.
Your finger's a little bit in the way. If you could, there we go. Excellent. All right. So we see trees, mountains.
Yeah. And now we're going, that's the village over there. 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗵𝗏. All the boats. It's a fishing village. It's a traditional village, 10 miles from Puerto Vallarta. This is where the students work, all with this view.
Oh my goodness.
That's
so for
over
those
there.
of you who might not be aware, Bob teaches workshops from this studio that he's showing us right now. So if you want to learn more about that, what's the website, Bob?
Art Workshop Vacations with an S. And I'm teaching Drawing for the Painter coming up pretty soon. Painting with Passion, Drawing for the Painter. There's a few spots left. Check my website. And there are many other great painters coming. We have Andy Evenson this year, Dan Marshall in watercolor, Deborah Hughes in oil, Tom Lynch in watercolor, myself. I'm sure I'm missing somebody.
Sounds like a great lineup.
But it's on the website. Anyway, so
right.
this is my workstation here. And yeah, that's
wonderful. That's well, I'm afraid we're out of time for today, but thank you so much for sharing your talents in your studio with us today.
I want to thank you, Mandy, and I want to thank everyone who's watching for giving me a part of your day. I hope it was inspirational, and get out and paint with light and love. And thank you, Eric, for all you do for the painters making this happen.
Oh, thank you so much for being our guest, and I'll make sure to send your love on to Eric Rhoads. So thank you. Okay, so stick around because we have some gifts for you today. First of all, I have a gift for you. Download the free ebook, 201 Essential Plein Air Painting Tips. You can go to pleinairmagazine.com/ebook. And don't forget that this week is Streamline's 12 Days of Christmas, which means that all week I get to give away prizes. Eric's letting me do the fun part. So today we have 2 gifts for you. And as a reminder, Streamline drops new gifts to shop for loved ones or yourself every day at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for today's giveaway, the first one, type apron to get a chance to win a Plein Air Magazine apron. And so type apron in the chat if you'd like your very own Plein Air apron sent to you. Just a reminder, please make sure to send an email to 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗵𝗁@streamlinepublishing.com to claim your prize. Zenobia, congratulations. Zenobia Evans, you are today's winner, and we'll send you that apron. I'm trying to highlight, but I think I'm doing it wrong. Okay, and our next prize, type EBC to get a chance to win an easel brush clip. EBC, easel brush clip. Type EBC in the chat. Again, just a reminder to make sure to send an email to 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗵𝗁@streamlinepublishing.com to win. Our last winner is very excited about the apron, I see. Oh my gosh, it's going so fast. Don Litvin. Congratulations to Don Litvin. You are the winner of our easel brush clip today. Thank you so much for joining us and following your art journey and letting us be a part of that. Okay, everyone, don't forget to subscribe to this channel at Artschool Live on YouTube and at Eric Rhoads on Instagram. You can also see more of my work at Mandy Fine Artist and learn about the art school that I run at schoolofatelierarts.com. I'm so grateful to be a part of your art journey this week. Thank you for being such generous students and attendees this week while Eric was away, and he will be back on Monday, and you will all be missed dearly by myself. So thank you for a wonderful art-filled week. It was a joy to be here with you, and happy painting.